This episode of CWA, I sit down with pickleball coach Michelle who has traveled the world teaching pickleball and is also a liver transplant recipient. Here's a quick preview of our conversation.
So I ended up getting certified under 3 different organizations, governing body for the sport. So you have to know the rules.
And you were invited to China to teach pickleball. What was that like?
They're already prepared to win the Olympics. You can play this game smart, or you can play this game powerfully. Pickleball saved my life. I was depressed. This is not a great solution to someone having organ failure. You get chills. I've literally gotten calls from someone in Paraguay saying, when you're declared brain dead, there's no chance of surviving. I had sudden acute liver failure, but probably the thing that people don't understand.
And now here is the full conversation with Michelle Dable. I hope you enjoy. Pickleball. It's really popular now, but I feel like when you started it, it wasn't as popular. How did you first find out about the sport?
So I started 8 years ago, and it was because I was attending the transplant games and I was playing tennis. And they announced the next transplant games, we're going to do pickleball. And I turned to my tennis partner and I go, what in the world is pickleball? I never heard of this game. And she said, oh, it's a really fun game. I have a place in Florida and I learned how to play down there. So I'll show you how to play. So, okay. So we practiced a little. I was like, all right, this is fun. But I was playing a load of tennis. So I was like, not going to really do too much of this. I don't have time. But then as things progressed, it was harder and harder to find people to play tennis with. And I wanted to practice pickleball. So I would corral my tennis friends and corrupt them and bring them to the pickleball side. And they were like, oh, you're taking us to the dark side. But then they fell in love with it. So it went from like 10, 15 people in a town nearby to 200 and 300. And that list is now well over 1,000 of people that want to play this game.
So let's say I'm a tennis player. How transferable are those skills to pickleball?
They really are transferable, I'd say 90%. There's only a couple of changes that a tennis player needs to make, often with the extent of their stroke, whereas a tennis stroke is going to be almost a full wind up and coming through the ball. A pickleball court is a quarter of a tennis, so you really only need a quarter of that stroke. So you basically just use the front piece of a tennis stroke. And then there's some rules where in tennis you can serve a ball overhead. In pickleball, it has to be underhand. You have to let the ball bounce to the opponent, and then their ball, when they return your serve, also has to bounce, which in tennis, you can serve and volley. So once a tennis player understands those rules, they adjust really quickly. They've been tracking a ball. They've been chasing it. They've been looking for openings in the court. They understand the strategy of moving someone and then sending it to the spot where they're not standing. So it really is a beginner pickleball player who has background in a racket sport like tennis, racquetball, even handball, and any of the other type racket sports gets ping pong really good at pickleball fast.
You started out playing pickleball, but now you're teaching pickleball. How did you get into that?
So as I converted my friends, I would realize people would be like, oh, somebody else wants to learn. Somebody else wants to learn. And I'd be like, okay, they can come. But then I would set up an appointment and sometimes they wouldn't come. And I thought, it's probably because they have no skin in the game. So I know how to play, but let me go and find out about getting credentials. So I'm insured and safe to do this. And then I might make them pay me $20 so that they have to pay something so they're going to actually show up. Because a lot of times people they don't pay for something and it's a little inconvenient for the moment. They may say we're going to come, but then not come. So I decided during COVID, I had time because everybody was locked up in their homes. And so there was a lot of online classes that you could take. And so pickleball was one of them. So I did a lot of the online stuff on pickleball during COVID. And then when COVID sort of broke, you could do this in-person training for the other pieces. So I ended up getting certified under 3 different organizations that kind of compare them. I didn't need all that insurance, but it was good to have.
How did you do the online ones? Did they set up a camera and you watched them play, or how did that work?
They basically kind of ask you more questions about all the rules of the game. So USA Pickleball is the certifying governing body for the sport. So you have to know the rules. If someone hits a ball and in their swing, they tap it twice, is that okay? And it is. And so you just have to know the rules. So the test would be, where does the serve have to land? Maybe, it has to land past the non-volley zone into the diagonal box. So there's different things. So that was more about online questions about rules. And then there were some, watch this video and what would you tell this player what they're doing wrong? How can they improve that? And then there'd be like multiple choice. And so you got a fair amount of input that way. There wasn't a whole lot you could do like how I would show somebody. There was one point where they said, can you show us how you might push the ball in a soft way? And I think they watched a little bit, but it was at that time, the technology really wasn't there to look at someone and watch their video to tell them how you were playing or how you might coach someone.
Pickleball has taken you all around the world, and you were invited to China to teach pickleball. What was that like?
China was fantastic. We were treated like royalty. We had a chance to teach children, adults. We went to schools. We went to community centers. We taught inside corporations that have floors dedicated towards sports. So they would have like 8, 9 pickleball courts. And, other countries aren't as far along in the game as the United States. So they're looking for people to come over to help them understand the game and also build up their coaches and their clients. And so they're already prepared to win the Olympics when the pickleball shows up as an Olympic sport. It translates really well to ping pong, and ping pong skills and spins are very hard to deal with.
What was the skill level of the people you were teaching? Were there people who realistically could, when it becomes Olympic, be in the Olympics for it?
We met a lot of folks that were nationally ranked and internationally ranked ping pong players, some badminton as well. So their mechanics, once you said, make this little change, they were incredible. So it won't be long. I even said, I know you want to come back here next year, but all of the coaches here probably aren't strong enough to come back to the people that are going to be here when we come again.
Wow. What advice do you have for beginners? What's a common beginner mistake with pickleball?
For the most part, a beginner comes and they don't want to look foolish. They're worried that everybody else is going to be better than them. And they're going to bring down the team, so to speak. So for me, when I have a beginner, I'm just trying to get them to have fun. I don't really care if you win a point. I want you to have fun and stay safe. And so I'll joke around and I'll just try to get them to relax. If they can relax and accomplish a hit, the smile just comes on their face. I get the people that were like, nobody ever picked me for gym to be on their team. My husband's athletic, but I'm not. And I'm always like, doesn't matter. You can play this game smart, or you can play this game powerfully, or you can mix them. You can beat your husband. And those people are like, okay, cool. When can I come again?
Wow. It ignites a fire in them. They're like, oh, okay, I can do this.
Yeah. And I've had clients that were older that moved maybe to the area and don't have family here that have said, I didn't really have a lot of friends because I didn't know anybody. And when you're older, it's harder to meet people. But pickleball lets you meet hundreds of people. And so she basically said, pickleball saved my life. I was depressed, and I can now pick up my phone and find all these people that'll go out and play pickleball with me. And then we'll go to lunch, or we might go to dinner. So it's a super social game that really fills a niche for people that might not be out in the public otherwise.
Wonder why pickleball does that, creates that community, whereas maybe tennis didn't or other sports didn't.
The thought is because of the size of the court. And I would joke because I played a lot of tennis and people get a little stuffy when they play tennis. And I played women's tennis. And so often you see the person across the net talking to their partner and they're looking like they're probably saying something about you, but you can't hear them. So you're like, but on a pickleball court, even if you want to say something about me, I can hear you. You're too close to do that. So it becomes, I'm close. Hi, you have to look me in the eye if you're going to say something about me because you really can't avoid me. So we're going to just be nice, aren't we? Because we're here having a good time. And for heaven's sake, it's a wiffle ball. If you can't just realize how much fun you can have hitting a wiffle ball, you probably are in the wrong spot.
That's so interesting about the court size. I never would have thought of that.
Yeah, you're close by. You're close by to your partner. You're only 10 feet on my side, 10 feet on my partner's side, and they're 15 feet away from us. So it's close. It's very communal.
And you mentioned the transplant games earlier. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so when I had my transplant, I had no idea that there were other people that also had transplants and that there were a fair amount of them. And I literally went for a massage. I was stressed out, and the massage therapist says, "Oh, you have a liver transplant." I said, "Yeah." She said, "Oh, I donated a kidney to my mom." I said, "Wow, that's really generous and nice to hear. I've not met anybody that's done that." And she said, "Do you know that there's something called the transplant games?" I'm like, "No idea, never heard of it." And she said, "Every 2 years in the United States, people that have received a transplant get together along with their donor families, living donors, and then supporters of the cause to get together in areas where people might not understand donation and transplant, to increase the numbers of the registry and to show that they're living a healthy life." So in the prior days of transplant, people are like, "Why would I do that? Because if I do that, I'm going to take all these drugs. I might still have some other problems. This is not a great solution to someone having organ failure." But as time went on, it was a very successful thing if you received the right match. And so the transplant games demonstrated that these people look normal like everybody else and can still move and do athletics, whether they donated a kidney or donated a partial liver or received one. So it was a giant awareness event, kind of like the Olympics for transplant recipients.
That's amazing that it shows both sides. Hey, you can do this and you could do amazing things afterwards.
Yeah, and it ends up being like this reunion of people. So in the earlier games, I did not know my donor family, and many of the people there did not know their recipients. But you would talk to these families, they would talk to you, and you'd start just adopting each other. It's like, okay, I'll be your recipient. Doesn't matter. It might not be real. We don't really know. And you never met your donors, whatever. And so everybody just started to support each other because we have this very interesting and kind of bizarre experience that we connect on. And it really is a very incredible experience to be there amongst, when you look around a room and there's 3,000 people that are only there because someone said yes to donation, you get chills. You're like, wow, this is pretty nutty. And then there's world transplant games. So people from all over the world come together and do those. And I've had the privilege to do that. And so I basically have a family of transplant friends and affiliates in the United States as well as international. I've literally gotten calls from someone in Paraguay saying, "My friend's sister needs a liver. Can you talk to her?" And everybody does. Everybody helps each other.
It's a real community. What would you say to people who are hesitant to become organ donors? What's stopping us from having more people participate?
The biggest problem is people have to be in a hospital on a ventilator to be able to qualify for donation. Many people pass away not in a hospital, or they pass away in a hospital, but they have had such severe injury that it's not possible to salvage organs, but they could be tissue donors. They could be cornea donors. So meeting the criteria of donation is difficult. The numbers have gone up, sadly, because of overdoses, which tend to be younger people that have healthy organs until the overdose happens. And just recently, I was listening, probably about a month ago, that those numbers have come down now because they've been a better job of managing the opioid problem. But probably the thing that people don't understand, and I've done presentations from high schools, middle schools, colleges, doctors, police officers, you name it. They have this misconception that when an accident happens to them and they get to the hospital, that somehow the staff there isn't going to work on trying to save their life, that they might know someone who needs a transplant. But the reality is the people that are saving somebody's life have given an oath, and they're an entirely different medical group. So they're saving your life as best they can. When you're declared brain dead or dead, cardiac death, there's no chance of surviving. They then bow out, and another team of facilitators come in that are coming in from the organ procurement organization that are finding out, okay, we did multiple tests to verify that this patient is brain dead, has had unsurvivable injury, and is a candidate for donation. And to keep someone who is brain dead and their brain is not telling their organs how to function is actually quite difficult for this team to maintain those organs and keep them healthy inside a body. So they're doing all the things that the brain would have done, increasing blood flow, blood pressure, giving it this, giving it that. So I basically say, if you're a donor, you're treated far better in a way than if you weren't. But you're still cared for until you're passing away. There's no survivable opportunity. So there's one image that sticks with me, and it's a little girl standing next to a garbage can. And the wording always was, where would you prefer your organs went? And to me, that said it all. Like, how could you not help someone? You can't take your organs with you. You might as well share them. And if I don't qualify for organ donation, please take all the tissue you can use. Take my corneas, whatever you can use. And if that doesn't, use it for research. Do whatever you've got to do to help somebody else.
What about on the recipient end? If I'm receiving a liver from one of those people, how does that work? Is there a list? What does that look like?
There is a list. So if you were to have liver failure, most people have a slow liver failure. I had sudden acute liver failure. That's a rare number of people have that happen. But you would go to your doctor and they would evaluate you and they would say, okay, we've done these tests and your liver function is so bad that we know we can keep you alive for a little bit longer, but you're going to have to go on the transplant list. They would basically list your size, height, weight, what organ you need, what your blood type is, and then it goes into a computer system. And if your numbers make you the sickest person in the area that now just had an organ recovered, then you're number one on the list. They would approach your doctor and say, we have a liver for Aiden. This is the criteria. Maybe we don't know everything about it. This person could have been a drug user, so it might be a little risky. Do you want to take it, doc? And the doc would make a decision if they're going to allow that to be the one that they say yes to. They might decline it. They might go ask you. Some doctors will ask their patients, this is the situation, do you want to accept it? Some will just make the decision because they don't want to transplant something that doesn't last.
So let's say they come to you, they're like, hey, we found this liver, and maybe they say this person was in a car accident. Does the doctor get any other data to help them make that decision?
They're told whatever information they can glean from a family member of lifestyle. They used to rule out if you had hepatitis. They'd be like, oh no, this donor can't donate because they have hepatitis. Now you'll be told the organ that you might take has hepatitis. Do you want to accept that? And they can transplant that. And then in a month or so, they'll use medicine that will get rid of the hepatitis. So it really is kind of supply and demand and trying to see what's the right fit for the sickest person. And is the doctor going to do the right by you?
What was it like when you first found out you had liver failure?
I did not know I had liver failure. So it was pretty shocking, actually. I had been working like crazy running a cafe, and I was getting more and more tired. And what I thought was just normal fatigue was probably liver failure, but no one realized that. I have a rare autoimmune disease that was in the background killing my liver, but the liver regenerates. So it might kill it, but then it does okay. Then it kills more, then it does okay, until it got ahead of me. So I ended up really waking up in a hospital bed to be told I had a liver transplant, never knowing that I was critically sick. So there's a doctor, I never met him. He's saying some words. I'm not exactly sure what he's saying. I'm pretty heavily sedated, but I'm coming out of it. And I think he's saying something, you had, and I still couldn't hear it. You had. I'm like, what is he saying? I can't get it. So he leaves the room probably pretty frustrated because I don't really know what he's trying to say to me. But the next day, the nurses come to look at my incision and they move the sheets. And I look down and I see I have 52 staples holding my gut together. And I'm like, uh-oh, what is that? And then they must have saw my eyes bugging out of my head. I can't talk. I'm on oxygen and feeding tubes. And they again say, you had a transplant. And I'm like, holy cow. I'm thinking I'm not getting out of here. My arms were half the dimension. I had lost all this weight. They basically transplanted me I had 2 more hours left to live. So I was really on death's door and they saved me.
And you said most people, they find out about the liver failure. Maybe it's slower. It sounds like you were just going about your life and then you wake up and they said, transplant's done. We did it.
Yeah, I mean, they biopsied my birth liver and they said it disintegrated. We don't really know how you were even standing. There was no way to biopsy it to see what happened. Yeah, it's very puzzling. There's things, and I never knew that other than people that drink too much and get cirrhosis, I didn't know that there's a lot of other autoimmune diseases that attack livers. So there's many transplant recipients that are liver recipients that are kind of ashamed of their transplant because they may have, had a problem that caused the damage. That's a disease also, but it was one they maybe had some input to or could have sought out help. I didn't know it was happening. So when people say, oh, you had a transplant, what'd you have? Liver, they give you a little look. And until I figured out what they were kind of looking at me about, I'm like, I have an autoimmune disease. I didn't know it was going to happen. It surprised my doctors.
What did you know about organ transplants before your liver transplant? Did you know anything? Was it brand new?
I knew a little, only because my brother was in research medicine. And I had visited his lab and I saw organs and things in jars. And I was like, wait a minute, what's that? He's like, oh, that's a age whatever heart. That's a person's kidney. I was like, what is this doing here? He's like, well, we test and do things with it. We learn about the cells in it. We learn about the diseases that might have been in it. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I wasn't even 18 yet. And back then, when you turned 18, you could literally on a piece of paper check the box and say you were willing to donate. So I was always willing to donate. I had no idea I would become a recipient.
And after you got the transplant, how did you seek out new information? How did you figure out, how do I navigate post-transplant?
It's a bit of a crazy flurry of stuff that you have to do. I was given a brown grocery bag of medication to be discharged with. And they walked in carrying this bag it was fairly heavy. And I'm like, what is that? And oh, that's your medicine. I'm like, for a year? They're like, no, this will probably get you through a month. I was like, a month? I don't even take an aspirin. Well, you're going to learn how to take more. And so I needed really a team of people to figure out my medication. And now there's apps where you can say, I need to take this with food at this hour, buzz it, alarm my phone. But then I didn't. So it was okay, at 8 o'clock, you need to take these 4 pills. At 10 o'clock, you need to take these and these and these and these. And then that whole was mind blowing. And I had been a very fit, athletic person before, and I could barely walk. I was like, this is really annoying me that when I go from my couch to my kitchen table, I'm too exhausted to eat anything. I got to go back to the couch and go to sleep for a couple hours. So it took a long time for me to get strong enough to even ask, what in the world just happened? So I'd ask my doctors and they're like, well, yeah, this happens. Sometimes people have autoimmune diseases and yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you in 2 days. We're going to be testing your blood every week, sometimes twice a week. And when you'd go to a clinic, you'd start seeing other people and you'd be like, oh, what? It was always what are you in for? And you start meeting people and you understand, okay, there's a lot of people that are kind of on this path that are in this room. But it still wasn't enough until the transplant games. When I went to the transplant games and I'm walking in with a drink and somebody says, hey, what'd you get? I said, an iced tea. And they went, no, you idiot. Aren't you here for the transplant games? I'm like, yeah. Nobody ever asked me that question that way. It's, oh, yeah, I'm a liver. Oh, I'm a liver too. And everybody's like, what medicine do you take? What do you do? How do you do it? And I'm like, why are you limping? Oh, I've been on these drugs for a long time and they have effect on your bones. They have effect on your muscles. And I was like, oh, I don't want that. So every appointment, I annoyed my doctors. I would say, okay, you tell me I have to take these 25 pills. How do you know I need them all? Oh, that's protocol. I'm like, all right, I'm with you on the idea of protocol, but you haven't tested all of these on me. So what about we bring it down? Each time I see you, you drop it a little. Oh, that'll put you into rejection. I said, well, how about I'm willing to take the risk? Because I see the side effects and I'm reading the panels of descriptions of what happens with these medicines, and they all cause cancer. And I'd rather not die from cancer if I can help it. They didn't like that. But I would push them, and I went down from 25, 24, 23, 22. And multiple times a day. I take one pill, 1 milligram, once a day now. And I've had no problems. And I don't have the joint problems. I don't have the muscle problems. I don't have the skin cancers. I don't have the organ cancers. So far it's working for me.
That's crazy to me that you got more almost guidance from your peers than you did from the doctors.
It's the peers that had the experience, right? There are other people that have lived with transplants long enough to see the problems, to have their friends pass away because they developed liver cancer or lung cancer. And it's because of the medicines. The medicines are wonderful at calming down your immune system. But when they suppress your immune system, you're now vulnerable to catch everything. And cancer, many of them are viruses that kind of go rogue, or your body kind of going rogue on itself. So it was a really eye-opening experience to see people that had been transplanted out many years. And so then I started researching. Then I said, I want to read more. I want to understand what's the life expectancy of someone who had a liver transplant. Back then it said I would make it 9 or 10 years. I thought, that's pretty good. I can get a fair amount done in that amount of time, but it would be nice to have more. Only to realize I'm now 21 years out, and it's because I don't take so much medicine that I avoided a lot of the problems that early on, when they didn't know they can wean you down to lower dosages, those people weren't as fortunate.
It sounds like it's important to advocate for yourself and learn what you can instead of just trusting what the doctors are telling you, because they're over-indexing on, hey, we just can't have the liver be rejected.
Yeah, they're very concerned. And I remember, so because I asked them to lower it, I did have one incident where they lowered it and my numbers flared. So I went into a small bout of rejection. And I thought, oh no, I'm going to kill myself doing this. And they're like, no, we're just going to double your medicine. So, okay. So they double my medicine. And over a couple of months of blood work, it improves. It looks fine. So now I'm back to, okay, you doubled my medicine. Can we now reduce it again? Oh, no, we're not going to do that for a couple of years. We're stable. Don't rock the boat. You're fine. And I'm like, but I now know that if I stay on all of this, you're going to affect my kidneys. And they're like, yeah, but we saved your life. We're going to monitor all that. I wasn't a fan of that answer. So I went to another doctor and I asked, what would you do if you were told, or you had a patient, and I told him the situation. He said, they're going to blow out your kidneys. I said, okay, that's what I expected. That's what I think from what I've researched. Will you take me as your patient? And they said, yeah, sure. Come on over. And so I am affiliated with liver surgeons who, if I ever developed a tumor in my liver, could deal with it. And I know how to read my blood work. They know how to read my blood work. So I'm treated that way, which is uncommon. Most people just stay with their transplant center, do what the protocol is, and see how the odds go.
Do you have any advice for someone who's trying to find that doctor that's a good fit, or is it really just a game of trial and error?
The problem often is that your insurance is going to restrict where you can go. So there's a lot of insurance policies. If you live in New Jersey, you cannot go to New York. And if you live in New Jersey, there are only 2 hospitals that transplant livers. There's multiple hospitals that do hearts. And so you're at the mercy of the facility that's been granted the opportunity to transplant the organ you need. And you're stuck. You can interview all the doctors on that team, but they're most likely all going by the exact same protocol because the pharmacology salespeople have come in and told them these are the drugs that you should offer. And these are the drugs you're going to stock in your hospital. So they're going to offer those drugs. When I left the hospital and went to this other doctor, he said, there's a drug that works really well for livers, but when you read the inside panel, it's going to tell you it's not designated for liver transplant. But we know from all of the studies, because he was a research doc, it works even better, and it works really well for livers, and it does not affect the kidneys. And so I went with him and trusted him, and he's absolutely right. I have perfect kidney function, and my liver's happy.
That's incredible. Did you meet your donor's family?
I did. So the system allows you to write a letter to the organ procurement coordinator, who then sends it to the hospital, who then sends it to the coordinator on the donor side. Every couple of years, usually when I would go to the transplant games, I would write a letter saying, hey, I'm so grateful. By the way, I was able to do this, see my son, see my daughter, whatever those milestones were in the family, and send the letter. I wasn't allowed to share my name. I wasn't allowed to share my location. I wasn't allowed to share anything personal that they might find out who I was, because that's all confidential. And had I put any of that in there, they would black it out. So I sent many letters over the years, but they never made it. So somehow they were lost. Somehow they just didn't make it to the family. The family had moved. The daughter moved from New Jersey to Florida and moved around in Florida. So perhaps those letters just didn't make it. There was one letter. So at 10 years, I said, if I were someone that lost somebody, at 10 years, I've probably grieved enough that I can kind of cope. Still going to grieve, but I could probably cope and reach out. So I had met someone at the organ procurement organization, and I told them, and their job was connecting families if everybody authorized it. And I said to her, one doctor told me I had a woman's liver. Another doctor told me I had a man's liver. Doesn't matter to me. It's working great. But it would be interesting to meet the family one day. And it bothered her enough where she went back into the files on my case and found my letters. And so she took it upon herself to contact the donor's family and say, hey, I have these letters. Did you ever get them? And they were like, no. And she said, well, we have this one letter we'd like to send to you, which was the most recent one at my 10-year anniversary. And she read it, and the person said, would you like to meet her? And she said, yeah, but I don't live in New Jersey anymore. And the person knows me and said, your recipient would go to Mars to meet you. It doesn't really matter where you live. So she consented, and they came back to me and said, your donor would like to meet you. Blew me away. Your donor's daughter wants to meet you. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And my husband had a convention in Florida, and we were going to a hotel there. And it turns out that my donor's daughter lived 20 minutes from this hotel and happened to be home that weekend, although she had traveled other times. And we met, and it was like a family reunion. It was really emotional. She was absolutely wonderful, thanking me for meeting her. And I was like, thank you for saving my life, because she herself consented to donation. She was the only child of my donor, so she was next of kin. Parents were divorced. Father had just passed away, which is why she's like, it's nobody here but me to make this decision. So she made the decision and said, sure, I'll meet her. And we stayed in touch ever since. I've attended her wedding. I've attended my donor's mother's birthday. She's since passed away. I went to her services. They're like distant, special relatives now.
That's incredible. And you met after 10 years.
So people aren't usually encouraged or that stubborn. They usually send one letter and then they stop, or they're too worried about sending a letter and not being an adequate recipient, not making their donor family proud with what they're doing. They feel like they've got to, I went to the moon or something special. And really what I've learned, having met other donor families that weren't my donor family before, they just want to know that you're okay and that you're living and that you're honoring the gift you've been given and that you're grateful. And that's all I tell people is write your letters. Don't give up. Write another one. Send a card. It's okay. They may never respond, but they'll get it and they'll know that somebody's grateful. And that'll make them feel at least there's some positive out of a really horrible circumstance.
What advice do you have for someone going through the process right now?
It takes a ton of patience and a lot of effort to get listed. You need your family or your friends or someone that's going to support you afterwards because you're too sick to do anything. And you need someone who's going to help you get to your doctor's appointments. If you can't show you have a reliable caregiver, they will not transplant you. This is an extremely limited quantity of organ availability. And there are over 100,000 people waiting for organ transplant. So they're only going to give these very precious organs to the perfect matched, most compliant patient and family that has insurance, because the expense of this is enormous.
Wow.
Pretty heavy, but good to be alive.
Thank you so much.
Truly a pleasure.
To connect with Michelle regarding pickleball or organ donation, visit mdpickleball.net. That's M as in magic, D as in delightful, pickleball.net. And if you enjoyed our conversation, give us a follow or share this with a friend. Thank you. This episode was for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Please consult a doctor if you have medical needs.